I started walking because I'd basically been stuck in a computer chair for 12 years. Because the thought of getting out in the Florida heat, weighing as much as I did, no, that scared me. I just saw future heart attacks if I did that kind of thing. But I started walking half a block here, a half a block there, because walking the dog, I was very much concerned about injuring myself, recognizing that with the weight I was at, if I injured myself, the state of my health at that time was so poor, I might not recover from it. And half a block led to a full block, led to 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks. And then I'm like, well, how far am I walking? So I got one of those GPS walking programs and figured out how far it was from the front door to a half a mile away, so I could do mile walks and things like that. Long story short, over the next 3 years, I walked off 94 pounds, low carb, with using cannabis as medicine. By the end of 2015, I was off all the antipsychotics and antidepressants. By the end of 2016, I was off the benzos, which were very problematic to come off of. I'll never forget the day after I took my last 1/8 of a milligram, I woke up with vertigo, which I had to deal with for like the next 3 months.
Wow.
At the end of 2017, I was off the trazodone. And with the exceptions of a couple of rounds of antibiotics here and there for upper respiratory infections that I got after I went back to work, I have not had any pharmaceutical medications whatsoever. None. Zero.
Amazing.
Now, it's important to note here, I was not well. I was still crazier than a bed bug in a bonfire, but my quality of life was greatly improved. I could be more socially appropriate, but I still wasn't in a place where I could go back to work. And then this same lady, Kimmy Wade, messages me one day, says, oh my gosh, you got to go watch every video made by this guy named Dr. Jordan Peterson. Okay. And I found out I really liked what Dr. Jordan Peterson had to say about a lot of things. But I especially found this was May or June of 2018. And at that time, when you would do a search for Jordan Peterson on YouTube, you would get what we would call the Jordan Peterson Destroys collection, where he would render media and news anchors speechless with common sense and logic. And so that became a part of my 420 routine, was eating cookies and watching Jordan Peterson videos. And then there's the day that I see this 30-minute cutout of him on Joe Rogan, where he describes in a way I could understand how his daughter figured out, Michaela figured out, if she just ate beef, salt, and water, she eliminated her chronic arthritis symptoms and she eliminated her depression. Now, at the time, I didn't know that Jordan Peterson suffered from mental illness himself. How he was able to write the books that he wrote, 12 Rules for Life, while he was sick, it made him that much more impressive to me.
Right.
But here's a guy who part of his shtick, truth, it's not shtick, shtick's for showmanship. Part of the truth that he shared was, do not lie. Tell the truth. Or at least if you can't tell the truth, you don't utter a lie. I always admired that. I always considered him somebody not just of incredible intelligence, but incredible integrity. And he's telling me that I can get better by living this way. And my wife came home from work and I said, before you do anything, you've got to watch this with me, because I need to make sure I'm really hearing what I'm hearing. And she's like, yeah, that's what he's saying. And so I look investigated further. And the next person I found was none other than Dr. Sean Baker on Joe Rogan. And I must have watched the medical portion of that, the dietary portion of that discussion 50 times, because again, here you have somebody with incredible integrity. He used to have the launch codes for our nuclear arsenal in a silo when he was first in the military. They just don't let anybody do that. And then he becomes an orthopedic surgeon for the Air Force and does a tour in Afghanistan as a trauma surgeon. They just don't let anybody do that. So again, you have incredible integrity telling me about all the people he's seen eliminate arthritis, mental illness symptoms. And then I found a talk from Amber O'Hearn where she described in a way that this guitar player could understand how we as a species literally came down out of the trees, grew these energy demanding brains, eating meat and drinking water. We were drinking water because that's all there was. and I looked at my wife and I said, I have to do this. I have to try this. I can't not try it. July 16th, 2018 was day one, zero carb. 10 days into that eating only meat and drinking only water, I woke up without joint pain for the first time as an adult. Now, I'd never been diagnosed as arthritic, but I'd fallen down and gone boom a few times. Earlier you were talking about tables and playing music and stuff. Well, I used to do that. And I would always check out the table before that I was planning on jumping on. But sometimes those tables had other ideas. They wouldn't endure me being on top of them. And they would come down, and when that would happen, you protect your instrument, you sacrifice your body to protect the instrument, and you keep on playing. And if you walk around like a question mark for 2 or 3 days after that, hey, that's rock and roll. I had a lot of aches and pains. Well, I woke up and they were all gone. And I took early morning walks then. 5:36 in the morning, I'm out walking while it's still dark outside. And I'm skipping down the sidewalk, giggling like a little boy because it doesn't hurt and it feels good. I had to make myself stop laughing so loud because I just had this vision of somebody looking out their window reporting there was a crazy man laughing going down the sidewalk, laughing hysterically. I didn't want to get, I didn't want the men in the white coats to show up that day for sure. But then the morning of August 9th, I'm taking my walk, and I always get emotional when I talk about this. I'm taking my walk, and I'd been very paranoid. It was on day 23 of my carnivore experience. And I'd always been very concerned that I did not want to placebo myself into thinking I was well when I wasn't. That was my number one concern. But I'm walking along, and it's like somebody flipped a switch. And all that rage and all that anger and all that shadowy darkness and all that bullshit that kept me from being the human being I wanted to be, it just went away. It just ceased to exist within me. And it was replaced with a waterfall of joy that has not left me since. And that's why I do these discussions. It's because people need to know, no matter how sick they are, you're not broken. You don't have to be a slave to medication. Your mom and dad didn't make a mistake. You, like myself, were just taught to eat things we should never have consumed the first time. And that when you only eat meat and you only drink water, your body is free to repair itself. And the healing is real. Today is my 1772nd day of only eating meat and drinking water, and my symptoms have never come back. The crazies come back a couple of times when I inadvertently consumed something I didn't know had sugar on it. And by the way, I say the crazy, my inability to understand what my wife was saying, that kind of thing. But that was very short-lived, and it's only happened a couple of times. And as long as I'm so ridiculously paranoid when I go to a restaurant now, it'll never happen to me again, unless somebody's just got evil in their heart and they want to sneak something in that's not supposed to be there, which is highly unlikely in a restaurant. So that's my carnivore journey in a nutshell. That's my road to wellness. And that's why I'm been an advocate for this way of eating on social media. I've done a lot of interviews, as you know. I facilitated at one time, even it was up to 3 mental health meetings a week, and then I cut back to 2 mental health meetings a week. And then in January of this year, I decided to step back from facilitating those meetings altogether so I could focus more on individual coaching. And I was also much more musically involved in my music had a bigger part of my life and my time. I didn't want the two to come into conflict. And my quality of life today is just ridiculous. My wife waited a month. I tell people, when I didn't die after 30 days eating only meat, she decided to jump on board the carnivore train because she had osteoarthritis in her shoulders and in her hands. And that was all gone in 6 weeks for her. And she remains completely free of all of that.
Wow.
And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Brett, it's such a lovely, beautiful story. Thank you so very much for sharing it with us. I know it is emotional to consider, the depths that you were in, and to think that there would ever be any kind of hope that you could take yourself out of it. It's really wonderful. And so, again, I really thank you for sharing that story.